Hello everyone, welcome to Vijay IAS Academy. This is Saurabh Sharma. Let's start with the current affairs. And today the first topic we'll be talking about is housing for all. This is the scheme. You should know about this scheme because this is an important scheme. It has been running for the past 5 to 7 years. Now, what has been done? Why did we need the scheme and how far the progress have been made? This is what we have to look into this context, and let's see the relevance of the scheme and what is the structure, who all are the beneficiaries, and what sort of objectives it is going to give to the people in India. Is it just for the housing? The government of India has intended to supply the benefits to the people, or it has some other aspects as well? This is what we have to look into it. So friends, when you are seeing that the scheme names it named as housing for all, and by 2022 it was the prior agenda when it was launched somewhere in 2015, and before that it used to be named as Indra Awas Yojana, and that was the name was changed as Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin and Urban. That means like rural and urban, two different setups of India it was targeting. Now, as I said, whenever you are starting a topic, a broader one, which you do not understand, and you are simply starting it as a newcomer, so the best way is to look at the pictures. Simply go to the Google, there type housing for all, poverty, social issues in India, whatsoever, and try to analyze the images, whatever comes up. Try to get into more images, from image to image, image to image, and then try to analyze, picturize the things, because our cognitive memory, our rational memory, that is able to decode the information being seen by through our eyes at faster pace than what we are reading, simply, right? In this context, if I just take you for this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, so before that I would like to show you some photographs, some pictures, so that you can actually get an idea that what is the condition of people in India, right? Because you know that the scheme is not for people who are coming from background like you and me, who are gladly and by God's grace they are educated, they are coming from normally well-to-do family, and those who are glad enough, or that they have been lucky enough that they got education on time, they are having money in their pockets somehow, for the survivability I'm talking about, and you have been blessed that you got opportunity to learn about the world, to have this information about the world. But the majority of people living in India, they are not in that domain which we, you and me, belonging to, coming from. So looking or dreaming for the level of what we people are sitting, it's still a dream for them, and they are not in a position to dream for that. Rather, meeting the 2 square meal, like that requirement every day, it is a big challenge for them, right? So just look, let's just take a look at India from their perspective, right? So the first image I would like to show you is this picture on your screen. Let me just make you sure that you can see the picture. Yes, look at the picture carefully. Here, try to analyze the setup. In the background, try to see that, do you see a pakka house? No. Do you see some basic flooring or structure? No, you don't. Can you see this little raised platform on which, in the traditional tandoor system, this lady is preparing the food for the family? This is absolutely traditional. This is built of mud, which has this a little bit underground tandoor made on the high raised platform, let's say 2-3 feet from the normal plane. Look at the surrounding in which the food is being made. The child with a beautiful smile playing nearby. The fuels being used is the wood in the background, right? Look at the confidence, the motivation on the face of this lady. Look at one lady, she seems that she's going to take bath or whatsoever. So that means overall, looking at this picture, we can see that in India, Ujjwala scheme was launched because majority of the families, they were still dependent on the traditional methods of cooking, which were absolutely based on kerosene oil for those who could afford it, or picking the dry woods from the jungle or the village areas, from the khet side, from the forest side, so that they can prepare their food, right? And food is being prepared on in the or on the this traditionally made chulhas and oven tandoors and whatsoever. And the condition in which the food is being made, it is not at all quality uh, uh, adhered, or the sanitation is still a big challenge, right? And the problem of toilets, bathrooms, or the pakka flooring or the pakka house is not there. That means such houses are vulnerable when we are seeing these issues from the perspective of disaster. Correct? No rocket science, so you can easily decode this issue. You can easily decode this information from the picture, just one picture I am showing you on your screen. Right now, let's take a look. See, friend, if I am there to explain the topic, it will hardly take 5 to 7 minutes from me to jot down you the data, to give you all these information, what is there, what are the pillars involved, and how the scheme is going to help you out. But remember, UPSC is also studying the same information present in the domain, and they will never ask a straight question from you. They will only test your knowledge, that how well do you know India, how well can you understand India, how well can you plan your mind and your plan your framework of your actions if you are deputed on those posts. Simply, so you have to understand all these things, right? And probably this is a good way to look at the pictures, right? This is another rural setting you can see on your screen now. The picture is changed. So in the screen, look at this kacha houses with the roofs having the dry grasses. You see the electricity provisions. If there is the dry grass, and let's say there are not good quality of pipes or wires being used for the electricity supplies. You remember the ad? You might have seen on the TV that one engineer on site is asking one of his junior associates that, Gopal ji, kaun si tar lagaoge? Gopal ji, what quality of wire are you installing in the building? He said, that sir is just a wire. Hardly makes any difference. He says that, whom do you love the most in your life? He says, my daughter or my son. He says, the engineer reverts and replies that almost 400 to 500 love of the lives, they will be studying in this school or in this building. Now tell me, what quality of wire would you just install within the premises? Then he understands that what engineer is trying to say. Now look into this picture. Do these people have choice? These people on your screen with their the traditionally built houses, do they have choices of having quality wires? See here, the roof, this house, this house, this house, this house, nothing. That means, and if you see that, probably it seems that a setup of somewhere where the looking at the vegetation, we can see that the monsoon has a good blessing over this place, right? Now, from the climate conditions, the durability of these houses, the quality of these houses is not disaster resilient. Number one thing. Second, disaster resilient means if there is cyclone, if it is a coastal place, the or saving themselves from the heavy monsoon rains, right? Third thing, that if there are no good or better electricity provisions, that means the basic electricity infrastructure is also lacking. And if these people cannot afford or they do not understand the quality of wire system or whatsoever, then they are also prone to, their huts are also prone to catching fire, if the electricity provisions are faulted, simply, right? Look at the street, though it looks clean, but it's basically a kacha road, right? So in this setup you can see that the vulnerability of this community is absolutely at stake, right? And if females living here, can you imagine that would there be any sanitation facilities nearby within the living premises? No, because the setup itself says that it is absolutely a village type, highly traditional social setup, right? And let me tell you this fact that in traditional social setups, you hardly have the toilets on premises, right? Because it is not at all accustomed to the culture what people have been living in. So for the nature's call, and to relieve themselves or to take bath, they have to travel some distance, because it is not at all acceptable for having the toilets, bathrooms nearby or within the premises where your food is being cooked, right? This is basically the majoritarian views what many people, many societies have actually adopted to. So it is basically a cultural challenge here, right? And why am I telling you all this thing? We will be covering this in our scheme when we'll be reading out the legitimate affairs of the scheme, what is given in there, right? So ultimately, you finally look at the face of this gentle lady. Can you spot any sort of motivation in her body language or on her face? Do you think that she would be happy in the setup where she's living in? Understanding the context is highly important, because you can easily decode your answers. Simply do not try to jump over to the figures, datas, and whatsoever it is written. No, it is not going to help you. The only thing going to help you in the exam hall or in your interview, how well you know and understand the thing, simply, right? So the confidence, motivation is not there, because skills hardly seems. If the only skills they have is their internal strength, their body power, what they are utilizing in the labor jobs under MG Narega. Other than that, no confidence they might have. Because do you think that these houses have any kind of ownership mechanism, any kind of registration mechanism, any kind of house tax mechanism, any kind of electricity bill mechanism? Nothing. So no assets will be on their name, right? The second picture is almost clear, right? Let's move to the third picture. This thing, as you can see, they are sitting in the lap of nature. Look at the house in the background. This is India. My dear friends, my dear students, this is India. And whenever you ask a question, thinking that if you ever asked, or if you are asked ever in your interview room that why do you want to join civil services, even though you are doing extremely or exceptionally well in all your existing fields, why do you want to join civil services? Rather framing any fabricated answers, my friend. Have these figures in your image, these images, figures in your mind, and try to find the answers that why do you want to join civil services? What changes can you make in the society, right? If given this position, that important, most important bureaucratic position in the country, what changes can you do? What scope you can find, and how well you can modify your behavior, your attitude, your skills, your understanding, your IQ, EQ, or SQ, XYZ, whatever, that these people can rely on you, that this person will help us. What can you do? What more innovation can you bring in your style of working, so that the stubborn, resilient, right, a kind of stagnant or matured work culture in Indian bureaucracy can be changed, right? Look at this picture. Do these people need an IS officer, IPS officer to just roam around this city in the Lal Batti Wali Gadi, or in a chauffeur driven car, or in the mansion being secured by many security guards? Are these people waiting for these people, or are these people waiting for those who can come because they were qualified, they were lucky enough to get the chance to read, to understand the life because of the utilization of these resources. I'm talking from the Marxist perspective. And now they will make changes for you, they will take a stand for you, right? Look at these kind of pictures. The third pictures, if you find this video boring, just skip it or just switch this off, but like that's how I only you can understand what is rural India, how India works. Because like when it comes to social issues, when it comes to social settings and these schemes like of things, you just mug up things and everyone is mugging up things and writing the same thing. Do you think you will fetch marks? No. Look at this picture, the way this lady is trying to clean the water, because nearby it's not at all clean water. It might be a pond, it might be a water body which is open and where the industrial discharge is being poured in. Probably the dead bodies or bodily remains under any customs or traditions are being burnt nearby on the shores. So do you think that these people will directly take, because ultimately it is the human nature and at personal level everybody wants the best for themselves. And what is the definition of the best? That actually depends on the circumstances and time. So here within this context, do you think that this gentle lady is trying to extract clean water according to her understanding, like from the availability of circumstances in time and space, right? This, if you have seen that Man versus Wild, the Bear Grylls life, the how does he clean the water and all that, he has so many innovative ways. But here the traditional ways of cleaning the water is basically getting the water stored in some kind of that a hole, big hole, mud hole, deep in the ground, and allow the water's sediments to settle down. And that kind of sediment segregation will actually let the clean water to come up because of no disturbances, and then she can actually fill that in their pots to carry back. So that means in rural area clean water is also a problem. Now so far, right, so far, just connect that the housing for all should that have a space for the sanitary or let's say clean space for cooking, because the kacha food, the contaminated food, the contaminated water is also a problem that the rural population in the country is suffering from. Disease, suffering from waterborne disease, from vectors. In our previous videos we have also covered the tropically neglected diseases, and they are mostly virus, protozoa, or that bacteria based, right? Because, and the most important thing is this clean water. Because of the water, the vector borne diseases, the population in the rural area is catching, and especially in the tropical zones. So India is a tropical and subtropical line country geographically, and that is why I showed you the picture that housing for all, the rural and urban, because those who are well to do, they are living in the good urbanized categories or areas, they do not need this housing for all. But the slum, which is mushrooming in the urban areas and urban centers where population is increasing in the wake of jobs, who are immigrating from outer side, so they are actually consolidating themselves in the slum areas, and the slum has nothing or no other conditions than these set up in the rural area. Because what is urban poverty? If I just tell you in one line, urban poverty is nothing, it is just an extension of rural poverty in the urban areas. That's all. So their living style will be bare minimum, their existence will be bare minimum, and it will be absolutely challenging, like what is being shown in this picture, right? So the housing for all, the rural setup and the urban setup, we can see from this thing that the house should have a pakka house, it should have a pakka floor, it should have a pakka means the concrete one, the concrete kitchen or the separate cooking place, which is actually providing the clean condition to make food, right here. Now if we talk about the toilets and the washroom areas, that should also be built, because it is not only important for the cleanliness, but it is also important for the dignity of the women, right, the other gender. In the next, if we see entire thing, we should, the important component of the this housing for all is also the electricity. It is also the LPG Ujjwala connection. So here if we talk about the electricity, so that means the meters will also be installed there, and if the meters are installed there, then with the involvement of private sectors through the PPP model or some kind of public and private partnerships, we can have the basic electricity infrastructure laid down in the area. And other than that, if there are pakka houses built across the lane, then definitely the road structures will also come up. And if the toilets are being built on premises, because it is also because the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has nothing but the cultural and behavioral change and adaptability of this provision of cleanliness on premises was the greatest thrust, right? That is why most of the budgetary aspects have been spent over the advertisements and the awareness programs, right? Sharma ji was going to toilet, but Sharma ji is bringing a TV, and like how the cultural acceptance is lagging and the discrepancies are coming up, right? So that's why I have shown you the pictures, right? Now again here the pakka house, pakka flooring, pakka all the installments of the the Ujjwala LPG connection, then the meter connection, and ultimately the ownership of the house, because this structure has no ownership, right? So and if this Indian, I would say that this is also, he's also an Indian. This Indian, if was lucky enough to get a house registered on his name, then definitely he would be involved and cumulatively accepted within the community, because ultimately he is not going to get the rights here alone, and that could be because of that he might have been kept away due to some caste related issues. And because housing for all is also focusing on the SC/ST categories, rural bonded laborers, those who are in the MG Narega categories, and also those who have been exploited by the society in the name of caste, creed and color and whatsoever, right? Now the pakka house or the provision of housing for all should have also the element of supplies of har ghar nal or har nal swachh pani and all that, whatever like jingle this present government has tried to give that, right? Har nal swachh jal or har ghar nal pani and all that stuff you can actually make out from the document, because I don't get much into that. So if the provision of clean water, the tapped water, the connection water is there, then ultimately this much effort is not needed here, what is being shown in the picture. And the time, the dedication, what these people are actually importing here in this section, that can be brought into some other work, some skills. And if females are provided with the opportunity to work in any sphere other than arranging the daily course of the life, for example fetching waters from the ponds from whatsoever, and making food and cooking and just wasting their time, then the contribution of this gender is not ensured in the major pool of work. That is why many reports, those are coming from the inequality context, it is clearly showing that the female participation is absolutely least in countries like in India. And India having having found a mention in this kind of list, it is not adding to the 5,000 years old cultural or great civilization in this era of 21st year, because still we have not able to give respect to our females, because the cultural setting, the social settings, the local infrastructure has forced this gender to arrange these kind of facilities. And trust me my friends, this setup is also becoming an element that is actually reinforcing the weaker position of this gender in social life. So if we want to change this prejudice against this gender, then we have to provide them with the basic facilities, and we can only then ensure their participation. The next picture is little horrible, so please take a look. This one, the sanitation thing. So sanitation, this is the actual situation. I can easily make out that this is not a rural setup what is being shown in the picture. It is basically an urban setup. So do you think when the life starts, right, probably they are going for their morning calls. So if the morning call is becoming so challenging, so vulnerable, so humiliating, just imagine yourself going to these setups, right? What would be the inner motivation of you. Can you start your day with energy? Can you think of doing something positive? Right? If you have seen people like taking joggings and doing jogs and taking long walks along the Marine Drive in Bombay, Queen's Necklace, that road, or the, let's say, Marine Beach in Chennai, right, in Goa, the motivation, they think that what they have to do in their lives, right? The sunsets and sunrise give them the motivation to think positive in their lives, to do something innovative in their lives, and that's how they do, and they are actually claimed in the succeeded arena, successful arena. Imagine yourself not in Goa, not on any beach, Kalangut, Kandolim, or whatsoever, but you are here in this setup. You have to start your life here. Imagine yourself a DM, SDM, or someone as an administrator, and ask yourself to just live 2 days in this context, or in this situation. How can you feel that you are actually safe from your health wise, mental, and whatever your personality is going to develop? That is why when the day is starting in such a menial condition, then their day will be spent in this menial condition, and at night they will be sleeping with the humiliation being faced throughout the day, because starting to the work, these people are not working in very great or important or attractive domains. These people are mostly working within those areas where they are not even needed. If they are not ready to do, the other one will do. So that is why they have to do it. So it is basically the cultural legacy which is being passed from one generation to generation, because there's a theory of Oscar Lewis, that culturalization of poverty, that people have started believing in their life that this is their life. There is no change in their life, no way that can actually change their life. Nothing can be done. This is what and how they have started feeling in their lives. So can you believe that the people who are living in rural setups, those who are needing this housing for all kind of schemes, those who are living in urban setups, those who need of these housing for all kind of schemes, can they actually contribute to the economy? Can they? They cannot. Because now take another perspective. So even one thing you have understood, that women empowerment is absolutely next to impossible if we have this kind of setup, what all pictures I have shown you through. Now if you have heard, or if you have listened to the Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, the Honorable Finance Minister of the country, her speech, she said that in a country of 135 crore people, just about 3 crore people are filing their income tax returns. Not income tax returns. And out of that, more than 70% of people are claiming or filing the nil returns. That means they are not coming under taxable slabs. That means up to 5 lakhs if there is no taxation, or let's say up to 2.5 lakhs. So whatever the slab is, most of the people are not filing their income tax, right? So now if this is the condition, those who are actually well to do, they are those who are capable, they are finding ways to escape from paying taxes. Escape from paying taxes. If you see YouTube, millions of Indians are making videos. In many with millions of Indians are making reels on Instagram, on Snapchat, on Twitter, on whatsoever. Like I'm sorry if I said Twitter, because I know Twitter has no reel system, but Instagram has a reel system, Facebook has a reel system, YouTube has a reel system. They are earning money. They are just filing the nil returns. So that means the capables are not doing their duties, or not performing their duties, and those who can become or can come into that pool of finding duties, or duties to be paid or fulfilled or exercised, we are not providing them the arena to come into that zone. So this is the difference between India and Bharat, right? This is why we have such a large discrepancy, that we have a population base so wide, but still we have a tax base which is very narrow. So that is why our fiscal deficit, our revenue deficit, our capital expenditures are so less, and that is why we have a reduced budget allocation for the MG Narega by 20% or 16% or 6% reduction in the schemes for the children and welfares and whatsoever. That is how you have to connect all these arenas. That is how you have to see that whether all Indians are enjoying being Indianness, or we are still created, or we have still created that drift where people are not able to actually cross it over. And why they are not crossing it over? Because of those issues. So within this context, where more than 40% of Indians are still not living in the Pakka house of 20 square meter or square yards or whatsoever the unit is, how you can ensure that their participation in the Indian mainstream can be accepted or can be expected, right? So in this context, you have to see that the government of India, thinking this entire context and this entire situation, has launched the scheme of housing for all, for the poor people, for the vulnerable people, that they are struggling with respect to the cleanliness, Pakka structure, they are struggling with the clean water supplies, they are struggling with the great or just let's say the just good enough environment and context to live in, and they are just seeking that they are cooking their food still in the traditional ways, depending on the wood and other traditional jungle supplies, let's say like cow dungs and all. And that is why issue of TB, asthma, right, female issues, the problems in the water because of the like fluorosis and other kind of heavy elements found in the water in the underground regions. These are the issues. So for those people, this housing for all scheme have been launched. And if we see here, this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched for in 2015 by Honorable Prime Minister. The purpose to providing housing for all by 2022. Total 20 million units are required. 20 million means 2 crore. Actually more than that, right? But let's say 2 crore. Duration 2015 to 2022, effective from somewhere in June to be implemented up to coming March 2022. Now we'll be seeing that what is the progress we have. Coverage all 4041 statutory towns with focus on class 1 cities in 3 phases initially. Beneficiaries will be economically weaker section and lower income group. This LIG means lower income groups, the HIG means high income groups, and MIG means middle income groups. So you generally have seen the DDA flats, let's say, or any other corporation flats. So in this division of LIG, MIG and HIG, having income of 3 lakh rupees and 6 lakh rupees per annum respectively. So LIG, they are coming till 6 lakh rupees. Ownership of house. Beneficiary should not have any Pakka house anywhere in India. The household house should be in the name of female head or whatsoever. Freedom and flexibility to state government. This is basically because this, for these reasons, that means for reasons like this, for reasons like this, and this, we need this scheme, and that is why we are actually wanting this scheme of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which used to be Indra Awas Yojana, but now it is named as Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, right? So here, talking about this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana rural or Grameen, right? What happened is that this was launched with the objective of housing for all by 2022, right? The erstwhile rural housing scheme named was Indra Awas Yojana, right? It was restructured as Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Grameen with effect from 1st April 2016, simply. And which ministry is responsible for implementing the scheme? It is basically the Ministry of Rural Development, right? Aim to provide Pakka house with basic amenities to all rural families. Basic amenities. Look at this picture, my friends. This basic amenities. And what are the basic amenities? You can see that Pakka house, Pakka floor, basic cooking facilities, LPG connection, electricity connection with on-site bathroom and other sanitation provision, and the clean water tapping system, Har Ghar Nal or Har Nal Swachh Jal type of provisions within this arena. So if you have understood this, that yes, what are the provisions we are talking about? The provisions of basic amenities to all rural families who are homeless or living in kacha or dilapidated houses by the end of March 2022. So this is the objective we have seen. Hope whatever now I'm saying you have just seen in the picture, so you can actually imagine the situation well. So, and also the objective is to help rural people below poverty line in construction of dwelling units and upgradation of existing unserviceable kacha house by providing assistance in the form of full grant, right? And who are the beneficiaries? Mostly people belonging to SC/ST categories, because they are the most vulnerable people in rural areas and far-flung areas, right? Because there people still practice witchcrafting. People still call other people and they designate other females as witch, Diane, and vamp. And vamp is an urban concept or star plus ka concept, but let's say witchcrafting, right? So you can see that what sort of thinking these people have. Free bonded labors, and non-SC/ST categories, widows or next of kin of defense personnel killed in action, but still they do not have any place to live. Their people have actually sacrificed their lives for the country. These people are also coming into this category. And retired members of paramilitary forces, disabled person, minorities, and the other vulnerable people like transgenders are also be included here, because like they are also vulnerable categories, right? Now, selection of beneficiaries is through a 3-stage validation: Socioeconomic caste census 2011, Gram Sabha, and geotagging. That's how the beneficiary is being selected here, right? Cost sharing, just normal 60-40 in plain areas, 90-10 for the northeastern area. The feature is, just to know the feature, 25 square meter is the house ka size. Initially or earlier it used to be 20 square meter. Thanks to Government of India, they have now increased by 5, but it is not that high. But just a basic chat is given to the people with the hygienic cooking space. Very important, because the place to live or shelter is not only important. The purpose will be served if you have a pakki chat, like a concrete roofing to live under, and you have a basic cooking or hygienic cooking condition, because ultimately you are going to eat food, you have going to drink water. So if that basic amenities are not provided or not given, the ultimate objective of providing people with shelter will not have any kind of existence remain. So what is the provision is just like 70,000 people can 70,000 rupees people can take loan in the form of loans, and but like ultimately 1.2 lakh rupees in plain and 1.3 lakh in hilly states will be provided as the grant by the Government of India, right? So this scheme has this great component of converging of many schemes, right? Convergence of many schemes. Like if you see that convergence of yes, the homes will have a cooking area, toilets. So here it is Swachh Bharat Mission, LPG, Ujjwala Yojana, electricity connection, Ujala, or the Gramin Vidyut Pariyojana, and this Ujala actually LED bulbs, and the free meter connection under the other scheme of related to electricity provisions. Water supply, Har Ghar Nal Jal, right? Har Ghar or Har Nal Swachh Jal kind of converges with the scheme, and beneficiaries can plan their homes as per their need. Important this is. Why? Because of the cultural acceptance issues. Culture plays an important role in India. People can die for God and culture. They cannot die for their conditions, but they can die for the culture and customs and religion and God. So the problem is that why this component is being added. According to one survey or one progress reports under 2016 of Indira Awas Yojana, because it was basically taking a study from 2011 to 15, it was said that almost 35% of the houses built in the tribal regions, they remained empty. People, even after taking the registration in their name, they did not go there to live, because they felt that houses were not built according to their cultural needs. cultural acceptance. They never accepted that the toilets in within the boundary of the house where the kitchen is also nearby, right? This is just an irony that people are still struggling to cope up with this kind of social discrepancy, social acceptance and social dichotomies when it comes to religion and their customs. So what government of India could do that to speak to the community and to study with the help of great sociologists and anthropologists who study social rural settings and rural setups and people relations between the individuals, so they could have given the great inputs about the cultural acceptance of these people, right? In what ways will that be given? If people have not accepted, the beneficiaries have not accepted, and they did not go there to live in even after taking the registration, then the scheme has actually missed the targets set in the objectives. So that is why, if this is the issue, then community toilets can be built in a row for the houses, right? And that could be just at a distance of, let's say, 10 to 20 meters from the house entrance. That could also be possible, right? Otherwise, it is better than people, especially females, who are going into the jungles to relieve themselves, because there these sociologists have studied that the deaths because of the poisonous animals are biting females or other people who are going within the jungle or deep in the jungle, and mostly the snake bite issues have come up. So at least people can be saved from that kind of deaths, right? So in this manner, they can plan their homes as per their need, that means according to their cultural acceptance, so that the money invested in the project is not lying idle and it is basically going waste, right? That is a thing here. I hope you are understanding this issue. Now, performance, if we talk about the performance, right? Okay, just one thing also, like as I said, that piped drinking water we have discussed, LPG connection I have said, the electricity connection I have said, and different programs are also be attempted. And here one most important thing is that through this thing, government is also giving them the assured employment days. Let's say 100 under MG Narega. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act or scheme. Right? So under this MG Narega, because people are building their houses, so those who are in need of work, because MG Narega is basically a demand driven, voluntarily demand driven job prospect. So people can be channelized in this direction for building of the houses, and we have the target of constructing 2 crore, over 2 crore pakka houses. So here the provision of Manrega or MG Narega is also valid. So basically the convergence of many schemes have been a great idea within this context, right? Now, performance of the scheme. The thing is that due to COVID, the development and pace of the development of the construction have been very slow, right? Like that, it just remained at the space of 6 to 7% of completion, what the objective, what intended, because here the open working, the supplies of material, the construction availability, the supplies of labor, people working in open, people working in group have been all barred, especially in 2020. And again the situation came in 2021, which was actually gradually taken off, but however it gave a great effect on these issues. So only so far 55% of the construction target, let's say around 50 to 60% of the construction target has been completed yet, right? And it was, let's say, 2.28 crore or 2.3 crore houses to be built for the rural poor. So it just less than 1.2 crore had been built so far till January 2021, and in the previous 1 year the concrete data is to be come, so I'm not quoting it right now. The money which is actually sanctioned, it has not been remained enough for the construction due to the inflation additions, and inflation was not at all calculated because of this COVID pandemic. The material rates, the fuel prices, the supplying cost, the labor cost, and many things have been impacted. Thereby, the fundings have not been enough to construct a house, and people could not afford their private financing to input in the houses. So whatever money was invested, it remained at halt, and hence the project, many houses or many units have been halted. Next is that the process of allocating the houses or granting the money is still in the clutch of red tapeism or bureaucratic hurdles. So, and here the corruption, that many people have been granted with the money, but their shares, ultimately it was taken back through the help of mediators and the contractors. So hence this rampant corruption actually is also helped in halting the scheme. Right now, the objectives of constructing units did not include that how many units were actually required, because nobody considered in 2015 when the scheme was started that by 2020 there will be a pandemic where many people who have gone to urban setups or other areas and they were doing well and fine, suddenly they would start retracing back to their native places, and hence the demand for more pakka houses will be there, and therefore this targets will be coming into the arena of halting and anything else. So in this manner, when the exchequer is being burdened with more demands, right, and simultaneously, let's say we have seen in the budget that MG Narega scheme had what finance minister has given the reason that almost 25% money has been unclaimed within this thing. So they have reduced the budget for the MG Narega. This is not a rational view. Why would I say that this is not a rational view? Because understanding the different tenets, that if COVID has forced many people lost their job, and COVID has forced pushing them back to their native places, then definitely if the money was remaining idle or unclaimed, it was there in the budget or in the department's hand. So department is very well known because of the practical observation and even through the reports that people are still not having jobs and they are still sticking to their native places. Then ultimately the demand will be there within the scope of MG Narega for the employment generation. So you cannot actually turn your eyes away from the practical situation, and you can halt the provision of the budget in this sector or in this context. Hence it was basically a very myopic decision, I would say, that it was not a rational decision, or probably that budget provisions would be revised as the time will pass, because ultimately the demands is going to be high, and because the housing demands is going high, so ultimately the employment demands will also be high in the rural setup only, because still Corona is still an issue. Many people have still not been vaccinated because of cultural acceptance issue, and some people or some communities are still not accepting the vaccines, hence they are vulnerable. They are at the verge of corona infections, hence so they better finding themselves to remain at their native places rather going to the urban or big cities, otherwise they would catch corona. So this is a sociological issue what Indians are having in the rural setup. So in this manner, the need of pakka houses in rural areas or in the Gramin areas or Gramin provision of the scheme is again going to put thrust on the demand, and also the provision of MG Narega, because if the demand for the pakka houses are there, so definitely the employment generation demand will be high, because like these people can be put to work within the construction activities of pakka houses. So therefore we would need more budgets to be allocated to the MG Narega. Hence reduction of this budget by whatsoever percentage, I believe it is, I think it is somewhere about 16 to 20%, not specifically, but this reduction is for the timing. It is okay just to read the data because 25% was remaining idle, but one data also suggests that more than 80% of provisions of MG Narega, it gets exhausted within the initial 5 to 6 months of the budget year. So now Home Ministry is more intelligent, and people sitting there, or sorry, Finance Ministry or whatever people or officers working within that domain would definitely take a rational step. This is what I believe. So this is the context of urban or Gramin provision. Let's just take a look of the uh, urban component of this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, right? I know that video is going to large within this one clip only, but ultimately, if you just understand this topic, you will never have any kind of scope left that you just go and read for anything else other than this, right? So, going for the urban sector, that what is the issue or in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana urban. So it's basically, so it was launched in 2015, the urban component, and it intends to provide housing for all in urban areas by 2022. Take a parallel image now. You have already understood the rural setup. Now take the parallel image of the urban setup, right? So there it was implemented by Ministry of Rural Development. In urban centers, it is being implemented by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, that is MOHUA, right? The features could be address urban housing issues among the urban poor, because who are urban poor, or what is urban poverty? It is nothing but the extension of rural poverty in the urban context. That's all. If the poor who have been poor in rural setup, they are coming to the big cities or in the urban centers for finding works and better life opportunities, then by the time they don't get stable, they would be remaining in the affordable housing areas, and they are nothing but slums, right? And in the slum, what is the situation? Again, vulnerable places, sanitization components missing, clean water components missing, LPG connection or cylinders missing, the proper clean water context missing, road sewage issues missing, high this water contaminated or waterborne diseases prospects very high, and the life is absolutely vulnerable and congested. And one more thing I would like to connect it with the social violence or problems for the urban crimes like petty crimes. My friends, when I told you that you just look at that picture where like people are going for the morning calls in the very unhygienic place or setup, let me just take you back to the picture, because this is important so that you can actually build a perspective of your opinion. See this picture. As I told you in the beginning that this picture is not of a rural setup, but is a picture of from the urban setup. So here, let's say if the general living condition here in urban centers also is like this, where your life starts in the day, in the morning, your right in this setup, then what is the condition of your brain, and what is the condition of your brain throughout the day, and what capacity your brain holds for making rational decisions, respecting those who are well to do. You, let's say, because like if you have traveled, see, like if I'm talking about Delhi, because right now I'm in Delhi, or any major cities, wherever you are, just see at the back of every developed area, you will find some little developed or less developed places, because who are supplying labors to the developed centers, those people have to live in the less developed centers. Otherwise, there will be no one to serve in the highly developed areas like Connaught Place, like Hauz Khas, Khan Market, South Delhi, Greater Kailash, whatsoever. They still have some kind of slums within the vicinity of the areas. Always remember, this is a bitter truth. Try, go out and explore your city, learn your city, understand your city, because practical answers is going to help you in the interview rooms, nothing else. Now, if you are seeing that this kind of situation is there within the normal context, and your day is starting with this issue, then just imagine the capacity of your brain, the understanding power of your brain, the internal strength of your brain for making rational decisions, respecting genders, respecting equality, freedom. Forget about fundamental rights. They are like in a position where arranging 2 square meal every day is still a big challenge. Do you feel they will have any kind of concern with the Constitution of India, or they would ever know that this kind of thing ever exists? No. This is the reason that frustration level in the minds of the people is so high that even if they have the capacity, they do not want to understand the situation, because this is kind of social anger in the form of social anxiety, in the form of frustration, is remaining within their hearts and minds, and hence it is reflected in their actions. Remember, the Nirbhaya case took place in Delhi in the month of December 2012. Those people who involved in that gang rape or in that assault, major assault on the dignity of Indianness, those people, they are no more in the life. Like whoever left, they were executed or hanged by the orders of honorable courts at respective level after their rational and legal trial, after they exhausted all their rights to make pleas at different levels up to President of India. It was all rejected. Those people were coming from these kind of backgrounds, and that frustration that did not leave any room. I'm not saying that any kind of atrocities or all atrocities are being just done by the people who are coming from this setup, but this setup is majorly contributing, because least or at the or at very lower level, people are able to comprehend themselves in a rational decision making arena. Here, exhausting or getting exhausted, getting frustrated, facing challenges from the time they open their eyes in the morning, by the time they close their eyes while they're going to the bed or on the floor for sleeping, they are finding challenging from the day start, challenging while at the work, because what these people are doing, either they are cleaning your houses, cleaning your offices and shops, they are riding rickshaws, they are pulling lorries, or they are working as helpers on dhabas and roadside eateries, or street hawkers, or some are vendors or whatsoever. So imagine the cities like traffic situations where big cars are plying on the road. So the size of the vehicle generally decide the temperament of your brain. That is why if you are riding a bicycle, and if you are riding, or if you are driving a car, so ultimately the car driver has more tendency to abuse the cycle driver, that you are blocking the road, right? So in this manner, the challenges for these people are very high, and within this context, can you expect them to understand or to respect the female's dignity? So when we are protesting against or for getting people who are involved in kind of crimes which are against women dignity, so when we are demanding executions of these people, we have to think that what we have done for these people. Have we given them the real equal arena, equal space to develop? And if the provided the circumstances or all the opportunities were given equally available to these people too, those who are living in the vulnerable section or vulnerable situations at the moment I'm talking about, and I'm addressing them as they or those. So here, then only we can actually say that the crime have been their fault, or they were at fault. Before that, calling them at fault is not at all a rational choice, rational decision. This is what French Parliament has said, and many parliamentarians there, they said that what have we done before we have called them the criminals. This is the problem with blacks in America. This is the problem with SCSTs and all the people who are generally acclaimed as wrongdoers in society, right? Those who have a compromising economical or financial situation, they mostly become the victims, or sorry, the accused, and mostly the victims when it comes to disasters or whatsoever problem in the country, right? So here in this context, this is highly important, that crime has also linkage with this kind of frustration because of the rural and urban setup. So you can imagine now that how important these schemes are, so that can give them dignity, that can give them motivation, that can give them some sort of confidence back to the mainstream, back to the governmental policies. And if the Kacha houses registry is, because female beneficiary is prime if she is a single lady, not children, and if the female alone is not possible, then the joint registration is being made in the name of husband and wife equally. If female has somehow gathered some sort of assets in her name, that brings the confidence back there. And when they do not have to go out to fetch waters from meters, 100 meters, 200 meters, when they do not have to struggle to collect the lakdi from jungle to make food, when they do not have to arrange light in their houses at night because it was dark, that time, that energy, that strength can be better utilized for arranging or for thinking creatively. Do not forget that female gender has great sense of humor, great sense of mind, and great strength to put into skills, so that can be actually converted to cottage industry, home based industry. And here the cooperatives, NGOs working, they are coming in, their assistance and help providing them and arranging them in the pool of smallest self-help groups. They can provide them with the financial credits of 20,000 to 40,000, 50,000 rupees, and that's how they can actually start their common business, because they have time now, because their basic amenities are being fulfilled and provided by this scheme of urban housing and this rural housing, and they have the some sort of financial assets in their name. Even if the need is required, they can actually mortgage with the bank. Do you understand my point? This is the entire paradigm of this situation, that we have to look at this in this context, and that's how you will be understanding, right? So if we talk about that, this urban component that covers all the statutory towns, notified planning areas, development authorities, special area development authorities, industrial development authorities, and wherever the urban setups are there, and again it will have the same basic amenities. Like, imagine that picture simply, if the context is coming, imagine that picture where the female is cooking food, where that the lady is trying to fill their utensils from the underground water, and when the people are going to relieve themselves across that kachra wale area, and then that gentleman, that old man is sitting outside their hut with the children, and other setups also, then you can see that what components do we provide to them. So the basic amenity is going to be similar, like toilet building, clean toilet buildings, water supplies, electricity supply provisions, and safe and hygienic kitchen conditions. And the ultimate objective is, if the female is given the asset, then ultimately it is providing the women empowerment, right, by providing ownership in the houses and the female members, and the free time whatever is required, that can be exercised towards these self-help groups, providing them the joint teaching, joint skills training, and provision of money is there. So definitely then we can actually ensure some sort of motivation, some sort of contribution back from them to the main pool. And that's how we can slowly start building that perspective, that one day we can at least have the provision of expanding our tax base in the country. Then no more will be the situation that finance minister has to specifically mention this fact that India is a country of so many people, but only these people, that handful people, are just filing their income tax returns with taxes paid. Because there is two things: one is income tax return, if it is nil, no value. If it is paying some taxes, then government is going to get benefited. So talking about the verticals, that how this scheme will be working. One, in the directly, like the land is being chosen, and where the with the involvement of Gram Sabha and others, so that the housing provision will be made. And otherwise, that is called as the in situ rehabilitation. That means wherever the juggies are, wherever the slum development areas are, or wherever the local and kacha houses in the village setups are, so that is in situ, that will be transformed into the pakka houses. So it is basically the in situ rehabilitation of slum dwelling areas, using that land with the private participation, because the constructors, the contractors, whatever the suppliers will be all private members. So here the watch have to be there, the social audit provision, the community involvement, community audit, community assessment, and with direct involvement of Gram Panchayats and Gram Sabha members should be there. And here the assessment reports must be filed, and the quality has to be analyzed and reported to the authorities. If any kind of quality is being compromised, then ultimately it is going to provide a disaster, because whatever the structure you have created, if it is not disaster resilient and if it is disaster prone, then ultimately the taxpayers' important money is going to be vanished, right? And here the scheme of the government will be a flop, right? The scheme is basically a credit linked scheme, because here credit is provided but some sort of intervention. Interest subvention scheme is also there. Affordable housing in partnership, that if the private builders are working for that and if some percentage of people are getting that under the housing scheme programs, right? So that means that entire project will be given some sort of support from the government and on the form of interest subvention and other kind of supports in the due diligence. So right, then again it is basically bringing in the private participation through the vision of the government for providing the housing for all by 2022. However, it is not possible, at least, but our objective is to provide pakka house to all the people in the country, because that can only ensure that right to life is the fundamental right of the in the country given by the constitution, right? So this was all about the housing for all scheme component, and I've tried to explain you with the help of pictures, with the help of provision of settings, that how do you have to decode the context, and that's how you can understand the topic. So now I presume that whatever development is there you are reading in your newspaper every day, do not try to mug up and go back to the basics, that what has been the basic fundamental. If you have just understood this video, now you just keep on looking if there is something new to add on to your previous knowledge information within this context, and that's how you can actually proceed. So this is an important topic, and I presume that in the form of interview or your social issues or the economic section for the people's development programs and policies, and any or other kind of aspect like essays, you might find a mention of this scheme or context. So thank you so much.